Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of our kitchen renovation. Today we are going to be doing flooring. So we're starting out by taking up our old ugly linoleum flooring that was in the kitchen and the carpet that was in the dining room that I'm so excited to get rid of. I cannot tell you how excited I am for that. So we are just pulling these up, and then we found the easiest way to actually take them out was to roll them up, tape them together, and just do it in little strips. That way it would fit in the dumpster better, and it was just easier to handle because, you know, carpet's really heavy. If you missed my other previous videos, I will link them down below or up in the iCards for you. You can see where we started at and how far we've come. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. So we have carpet coming up. Look at this dirt. This is the main walkway. Look at all of this. This is just loose dirt. That is so gross. Look at this. So bad. Ugh, so glad to get rid of it. Whoever laid this carpet 15 years ago did not want this carpet to go anywhere because they put a million staples all throughout the whole carpet. So I had to go through with a special screwdriver tool and pliers and get that all out. Faith even wanted to help out a little bit. She was determined to pull out the little staples. She kept trying over and over and over, so I had to kind of help her a little bit to get it. And she was so excited every time she finally got one. There's a spot between the flooring boards that was a little uneven, and so you want to make sure that's all nice and even before you lay any subfloor or flooring down. So we had some concrete patch stuff that we put on. So we had to let that dry overnight before we can continue on. So while that's drying, we're going to start cleaning up so we can lay the subfloor. We've had all of our subfloor and flooring boxes here in the front room for quite a while. We wanted to make sure we had it on hand for when we were ready to actually go ahead and lay it. So it'll be nice to go ahead and get that laid down now. All right, so now that our flooring patch has dried, Simeon's gonna go through and just kind of scrape it and take off any high spots. So that way we can go ahead and lay the subfloor over it. So the linoleum underneath the kitchen and over by the front door already had subflooring there, so we wanted to just continue it for the rest of the area instead of trying to pull up the existing boards. We just thought it would be smoother that way. We wouldn't have to worry about ruining the OSB floorboards underneath and trying to replace those. So we used liquid nails to get those on, and of course the kids had to help out jumping on it to smush it down. To keep the corners down while the glue dried, we put the bench there and let the kids sit on it just for some extra weight, and they thought it was the funnest thing ever. In order to make a straight line to get a straight cut, he used a chalk line and just snapped it, and then he could follow that with his circular saw. So we ended up going with luxury vinyl plank because it's 100% waterproof. So we went with the Mohawk brand, and the color is Weston Heights Mixtress, and it is an absolute beautiful combination of warm tones and cool tones depending on what color your walls and everything is. It has a little bit of gray in it, it has a little bit of brown, and it is very neutral and can go really well with any wall color. It has a beautiful texture to it and a wood grain look, which is what we really wanted. And it's very high quality. It was very easy to install ourselves. So to start out, we ran the chalk line across the room. That way we would have a perfectly straight line, because you know, if you get all the way across and your row is off just a little bit, it's a little bit crooked, by the time you get to the other side of the room, it's not going to be straight, and it's just going to be really hard to straighten it all out. So we wanted to make sure that our first row here was perfectly straight. So we had to trim off a little bit because he wanted full width pieces to be in front of the sliding door. So this stuff, you're just supposed to be able to bend and snap it, but it didn't quite work very well to do this lengthwise because it is pretty thick. So he tried bending it and it obviously did not work. So then he had to elevate it on something and was able to break it a little bit, but he ended up using the circular saw on these long cuts. If you're cutting it to length short ways, then it's a lot easier to bend and snap. But for these long pieces, he used the circular saw. So in order to get these to fit nice and snug, you have to have a mallet or a hammer, a rubber hammer of some sort, and then you have to sacrifice a piece that you don't mind getting banged up, because if you hammer your piece, then it's obviously going to ruin the edges and they won't interlock. So we just took an extra scrap piece that we cut off, and then we could interlock it and hammer it in there to get them all nice and tight. Now, what we didn't realize was there was an easier way to install this. So Simeon would slide them in and we would stand on the corners and he would actually hammer it in to make the joints meet. Well, that was a little difficult, and it wasn't until we finished this entire huge area that he realized if he did it a little bit differently, then we wouldn't have to stand on there, which I'll show you when we get to that point how we got that figured out. And then when we got to the end of each row, Simeon would just measure it and score it, break it off, which broke a lot easier than the other direction. And then we would take that little scrap piece and that would be the start of our next row. That way we would have as least amount of waste as possible. Miles, so what's your job?
My job is to compile from different boxes.
So while Simeon was installing the floor and me and Faith were helping him to keep the corners down by standing on it as he pounded it in, Miles' job was to line up all the boards for the upcoming row so that way Simeon could just grab them and put them in place very quickly. This went very smoothly and easily with us all working together.
Every change has a reason. Baby, let it come to you. Every soul, every season lives outside of...
We had a seam in the middle of the floor pop out of place, so Simeon just went to the end with a little screwdriver and he just squeezed the whole row together and was able to get it back into place, thankfully. So we had to keep checking the seams just to make sure that everything was still in place. So that's kind of a little tip: if you do have one that pops out of place, you don't have to take apart your whole flooring. Now that half the kitchen area is done, we're going to go ahead and put the stove back in place so we can work on the other half. Faith woke up after her little nap and she was vacuuming the floor so that way we can finish off. Look at this beautiful texture. I just absolutely love it. It feels really nice on your feet and it looks like real wood grain. It's not very slippery, of course, unless you run and slide back and forth on your socks, but I just love how this turned out. So this particular piece with the knot in it, we did not realize that the same board got placed 3 in a row. They are all right next to each other. This happens when you have a lot of pieces with variation and you're not paying attention to when you're laying it down. This is going to be under the dining room table, so I'm not too worried about it, but that's just something to keep in mind. If you're placing floor, just kind of make sure that the same pieces aren't right next to each other. Now it's time to move the fridge back in. So we had some leftover pieces of underlayment that we rolled the fridge onto, and then we spun it around and pushed it back into place. We did not want to scratch the floor as we were spinning the refrigerator, so that's why we had that extra piece down there, and then we just slid it back into place very easily without scratching the floor. When we pulled up the linoleum floor from this area, which used to be the old laundry room, there was mold on the floor from a previous washer leak, not when we lived here, so we wanted to make sure we cleaned that up. Now, I'm not a mold expert or anything, so you obviously need to do your own research on how to take care of this, but we sprayed some cleaner to kill the mold, and then I also painted over it with some sealer that specifically is supposed to seal out mold. We let that dry before we can continue on with the flooring in here. Remember earlier when I said Simeon found an easier way to lay the flooring instead of having us stand on the edges? Well, here's where he figured it out. So you just put the shorter end in the groove, and then you use the hammer to slide the rest of it in. So he was able to finish a lot quicker, and then I was working on some other things. So here in this little area here, we have all our doorways, and obviously since the carpet was laid around the trim pieces, so I took a piece of subfloor and flooring and laid it on the floor underneath with the saw up against it, and I was able to saw the ends off. That way we could lay the flooring right underneath. We are finished with this area and the bathroom. It's really good. We still have the closet and then the steps, all of this, but we have to take all that up, clear all that out before we do that. But right now we're working on so sadly the rest of my footage got deleted, so you can see we finished this whole area here. We finished up to the stairs. We still need like a bullnose stair end piece to go there so that way it doesn't get ruined. The basement is not finished. And then the bathroom in here is obviously not done yet, but we've got the floor done. We've got the closet here done. This all the way up to here. I love having this walkway here because it's a high traffic area. We got some trim pieces to meet with the carpet, so it looks really nice here. I love this area. It's just absolutely gorgeous. We also use some of those end trim pieces up against the stairs just to make it look really nice. So I hope you guys enjoyed this flooring video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. And the next part of our kitchen renovation is going to be the cabinets.